Maya grew up in a house where no one ever had time to cook. Her father was always away on business trips, and her mother worked long hours at a bank. Most nights, Maya would wait by the window, hoping her mother would come home early enough to prepare dinner. But when the clock struck 8 or 9, her mother would usually walk in, tired and drained, with nothing but takeaway food in her hands. So from childhood, Maya learned something she thought was normal, that food was best when someone else made it. She loved the smell of fried rice from the restaurant near their street, the spicy jollof from the corner shop, and the noodles from the food vendor beside her school gate. Eating out became her comfort, her little way of feeling cared for. Even when she grew up and moved to another city for her service year, that habit stayed with her like a shadow. She didn't bother to learn how to cook. She told herself it was a waste of time. Why cook when food was just a call away? That was how she met Leah, her roommate during service year. Leah was almost the opposite of her. She loved cooking. Every evening, the smell of pepper soup or fried plantain filled the small apartment they shared. Sometimes, Leah would smile and offer her a plate, saying softly, "Maya, try this. Home food tastes better." But Maya always waved her off. "No need, Leah. I already ordered something from King's Kitchen. Their pasta is the best." Leah would shrug and return to her pot. "You'll learn one day," she said. Maya laughed. "Learn what? To suffer in the kitchen?" They both giggled, but Leah's smile always carried a little sadness, like she knew something Maya didn't. One afternoon, Maya met Ethan. He was tall, soft-spoken, and had the kindest eyes she'd ever seen. He worked as an engineer in the city and often came to the youth center where Maya volunteered. He admired her confidence, her laughter, and her energy. They started talking every day. Soon, they became inseparable. He would walk her home, carry her shopping bags, and send her sweet messages that made her blush. Everything about him felt perfect. After 3 months, Ethan invited her to his apartment. "I want to cook for you," he said proudly. Maya raised an eyebrow. "You cook?" "Of course," he replied. "It's relaxing for me." When she got there, the table was set with candles and music playing softly in the background. The food, grilled chicken with mashed potatoes, looked delicious. Maya smiled and said, "You really did all this?" He nodded. "Yes. And maybe next weekend, you'll cook for me too?" She froze. "Oh, I don't really cook." Ethan laughed, thinking she was joking. But when he realized she was serious, his smile faded a little. "You don't? At all?" Maya tried to make light of it. "Nope. I'm more of a let's eat out kind of girl." He chuckled uneasily. "That's fine. I guess." But deep inside, he wasn't sure how to feel. Ethan grew up in a home where cooking was love, where food meant care. So, over time, her refusal to cook began to bother him. Weeks passed, and their small arguments started to grow. "Maya," Ethan said one evening, "I don't mind eating out sometimes, but not every day. It's expensive and unhealthy." "It's my money," Maya replied, not looking up from her phone. "Besides, I don't like staying in the kitchen. It's stressful." He sighed. "You could at least try. Cooking isn't about stress. It's about care. Then care for yourself," she snapped. The words hung in the air like a slap. Ethan stared at her for a long time, then stood up quietly. "Maybe we need space," he said. And that was the last time they spoke for months. Maya told herself she didn't care. There were plenty of people who loved her for who she was. But deep down, a small part of her wondered if maybe she'd pushed too hard. Still, she didn't change. She continued eating from restaurants, fancy ones this time. She earned enough to afford them, and the staff knew her by name. Miss Maya, they'd greet cheerfully when she walked in. Then one Friday night, after a long week at work, she ordered food from a new restaurant that had just opened, the Golden Bowl. The place looked elegant, clean, and bright. She ordered her usual, rice and chicken stew. When she got home, she opened the pack and nearly screamed. There, lying between the grains of rice, was a cockroach leg. Her stomach turned. She covered her mouth and almost vomited. After a few seconds, she laughed nervously. "It must be a mistake," she whispered. "Just one accident." The next day, she ordered again from the same restaurant. And again the next week. It was as if her mind refused to believe what she saw. The food still smelled too good to resist. But soon, her body began to betray her. One morning, she woke up with sharp stomach pain. By noon, she was sweating, weak, and vomiting uncontrollably. Leah rushed her to the hospital, where the doctor said it was a bacterial infection from contaminated food. She spent a week there, hooked to 4 fluids, her face pale and tired. Leah sat by her side, shaking her head. "Maya," she said softly, "you almost died. Please, learn from this." Maya nodded weakly. "I will," she whispered. But deep inside, she wasn't sure. When she finally got discharged, she promised herself to change. But habits are like chains, invisible, heavy, and hard to break. 2 months later, she found herself standing in front of the golden bowl again. The lights glowed softly. The smell of grilled chicken filled the air. She hesitated, then walked in. "Welcome back, Miss Maya," the waiter said with a smile. Maya smiled faintly. "Thank you," she replied. As she sat down, her eyes drifted toward the kitchen door, the one that always stayed closed. Something in her heart whispered that she needed to see what was behind it. And that was when her real lesson began. Maya sat at her usual table near the window, pretending to scroll through her phone. But her mind wasn't on social media. Her eyes kept drifting toward the swinging kitchen door. Every few minutes, it opened slightly as waiters went in and out, just enough for her to catch glimpses of shadows moving, the clatter of plates, and flashes of metal trays. She'd always trusted this restaurant. It looked clean, smelled nice, and the staff wore matching uniforms. But after her illness, something inside her wouldn't rest. As she lifted her spoon, her mind played tricks on her. What if that cockroach leg hadn't been a mistake? What if there were worse things hiding behind that door? She pushed the thought away and took a bite. But she couldn't swallow. Her stomach tightened. That night, she tossed in bed, unable to sleep. Her mind was full of images: a dirty floor, spoiled meat, flies. She woke up sweating and sat up suddenly. "I need to know," she whispered to herself. The next evening, she returned to the golden bowl earlier than usual, wearing simple clothes and a cap that hid her face. She pretended to be waiting for a friend, sipping juice slowly, watching. At around 6, she saw one of the kitchen workers come out, a young man carrying trash bags. He walked out through the back door into the alley. Something about the way he moved caught her attention. He looked around nervously before dumping the bags into a bin. Maya's heart started pounding. She waited until he disappeared around the corner, then quietly stood up and followed the path to the back of the building. The alley was dark and smelled of old oil and rotten food. The bins overflowed with waste, fish bones, soggy rice, and meat scraps crawling with flies. Maya covered her nose, her stomach turning. But then, from the open back door, she heard laughter and voices. She peeked through the small opening. What she saw froze her blood. The kitchen, the same one that served all those fancy dishes, was filthy. The floor was covered with grease and food stains. The cooks, wearing stained aprons, were laughing loudly while stirring pots. One of them wiped his sweaty forehead with his bare hand, then dipped the same hand into a bowl of vegetables. Another dropped a piece of meat on the dirty floor, picked it up, and tossed it back into the pot. And in one corner, she saw something that made her heart skip: a rat scurrying across the floor, right beneath a counter full of uncovered food. Maya gasped quietly and stumbled backward. Her chest felt tight. She wanted to scream, but her voice wouldn't come out. She clutched her mouth, turned, and ran out of the alley, trembling. That night, she sat in her apartment with Leah, telling her everything. They were cooking in filth, Leah. There were rats, and the cooks didn't even wash their hands. "I can't believe I've been eating there for months." Leah stared at her, speechless. "Maya, this is terrible. You need to report them to the authorities." Maya shook her head. "I just want to forget it. But what if other people get sick?" Maya didn't answer. Her eyes filled with tears. "I feel stupid. I should have listened to you." Leah put a hand on her shoulder. It's not too late to change. But Maya's mind was far away. Images of the filthy kitchen haunted her thoughts. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those rats, those flies, those dirty hands stirring food. The next morning, she tried to eat the toast Leah made for breakfast, but the smell of bread made her gag. For the first time in her life, the thought of food scared her. Days turned into weeks. Maya avoided restaurants completely. She started skipping meals, surviving on fruits and bottled water. Leah begged her to eat, even tried to teach her how to cook. "It's simple," Leah said patiently, showing her how to boil rice. "See? Just water, rice, and salt. You can do it." Maya tried, but her hands shook. The pot boiled over, and she panicked. "I can't do this," she cried, stepping back. "It's too hard." "It's not hard," Leah said gently. "You're just scared." Maya sat on the floor and covered her face. "I don't know how to start. I've never done this before." Leah sighed. "You've learned harder things in life, Maya. Cooking isn't about talent. It's about patience." Those words stuck in Maya's mind for days. Slowly, she began to try again. First, she learned to fry eggs. Then rice. Then stew. She burned the food sometimes, spilled oil on herself once, and cried more than she wanted to admit. But each time, Leah encouraged her. "You're improving," Leah would say with a smile. Maya laughed nervously. "Improving? I nearly burned the pot." Leah chuckled. "That's part of learning." Little by little, Maya started enjoying it. The sound of onions sizzling in hot oil began to calm her. The smell of her own cooking felt strangely comforting. One Sunday evening, she packed a lunchbox with her homemade food and took it to work the next day. When she opened it during lunch break, her co-workers stared in surprise. "Maya, you cooked that yourself?" one of them asked. She smiled shyly. "Yes. My first real meal." Everyone clapped for her, and she laughed. For the first time in years, she felt proud not for buying something fancy, but for creating something with her own hands. A few days later, her phone buzzed. It was Ethan. "Hi, Maya," his voice said softly. "I heard you were sick some time ago. I'm sorry I didn't reach out." Maya hesitated. "It's okay. I'm fine now. I shouldn't have left the way I did," he continued. "I was wrong to judge you. I just wish I'd been patient enough to help you learn instead of walking away." Her chest tightened. "Ethan, it's fine. Really." But when the call ended, tears filled her eyes. She whispered, "I wish you'd said that sooner." That night, Maya sat by her window, looking out at the city lights. She thought of all the money she'd spent, the meals she'd bought, the warnings she'd ignored. She thought of Ethan's kindness, Leah's patience, and the hospital bed she'd nearly died on. For the first time, she truly understood her old habits had cost her more than she'd ever realized. Still, she told herself she would never go back to that restaurant again. But sometimes, knowing what's right doesn't always stop the heart from doing what's wrong. And fate wasn't done with her yet. The months passed slowly, like a long road stretching through fog. Before we continue, I have a question for you. Yes, you. Why haven't you subscribed to my channel? Why? Okay, I forgive you. Go ahead and subscribe now. Like this story if you're enjoying it. Thank you. Now back to the story. Maya's life began to look normal again. She cooked most nights, took her lunch to work, and sometimes even shared her meals with Leah. She smiled more. She laughed easily. Her co-workers teased her lovingly. Chef Maya, they called her. Don't forget us when you open your restaurant. She would giggle and wave them off. Please, one burnt stew and you'll all run away. But deep inside, something still felt empty. Cooking filled her stomach, but not her heart. Something was missing, a spark, a taste of excitement, a little thrill she couldn't name. Eating out had always been more than just food to her. It was the sound of people talking, the smell of different dishes, the feeling of being served. It reminded her of childhood, of her mother bringing home takeaways when she was lonely. It felt like comfort, like care. Now, every evening when Leah was away, the apartment felt too quiet. The ticking clock sounded loud. The walls felt close. Sometimes she would stand by her window, watching people walking down the street with food packs in their hands, laughing and chatting. She missed that. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled in the distance, Maya sat curled on the couch, watching drops slide down the glass. She hadn't cooked that day. Work had been stressful, and she felt too tired to lift a pot. Her phone buzzed, a food delivery app notification. New menu from the Golden Bowl, 25% discount. She froze. The name hit her chest like a drumbeat. She stared at it for a long time. Her mind whispered, "Don't even think about it." But another voice, softer, answered, "It's been months. They've probably cleaned up. Maybe it's fine now." She tried to shake it off, but her fingers hovered over the phone screen. Her heart raced. Before she could stop herself, she tapped the app. The pictures looked so perfect: grilled chicken, golden rice, bright salads. Her mouth watered. Her stomach growled. Just once, she thought. One last time. I'll never do it again. And she placed the order. The delivery arrived 30 minutes later. The smell filled the room, rich, spicy, familiar. She sat down, opened the pack slowly, and stared at the steaming food. Her mind flashed back to the filthy kitchen she had seen that night, the rats, the stains, the flies. But her hunger was stronger than her fear. She whispered, "Maybe things really changed." Then she took a bite. It tasted heavenly. The same flavor she had missed for months flooded her mouth, and a small tear rolled down her cheek, not from sadness, but from relief. She ate in silence, each bite slower than the last, trying to push away the guilt that grew inside her. When she was done, she packed the box carefully and threw it away as if hiding a secret. The next morning, Leah noticed the trash bag. "You ordered again?" she asked softly. Maya avoided her eyes. "Just once. I was too tired." Leah sighed deeply. "You promised, Maya." "I know. But I'm fine. I feel okay. Please, don't do this again," Leah said gently. "Bad habits don't leave easily. You have to fight them every day." Maya nodded without answering. But the following week, she ordered again. And again the week after that. At first, she told herself it was harmless. "I'm careful," she said. "I only buy small meals." But little by little, the old rhythm returned. The thrill of delivery, the smell of spices, the taste she'd missed, all of it wrapped around her like a warm blanket. She didn't realize she was slipping until it was too late. One afternoon at work, while eating at her desk, she suddenly felt dizzy. Her head pounded, her skin felt hot, and her stomach twisted painfully. She tried to stand, but her legs shook. "Maya, are you okay?" a colleague asked, rushing toward her. She tried to answer, but her voice came out weak. I don't feel good." They helped her sit, but soon her eyes rolled back. Everything turned black. When she woke up, she was in the hospital again, the same white walls, the same beeping machines, the same smell of antiseptic. Leah sat beside her, tears in her eyes. "Maya," she whispered, "you scared me again." Maya blinked slowly, her throat dry. "What happened?" "The doctor said it's another food infection," Leah said quietly. "He asked where you've been eating." I told him the truth. Maya turned her face away, shame burning her cheeks. Leah continued softly, "He said this time, it's worse. You need to rest for weeks." Maya stared at the ceiling, tears sliding down her temples. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean for this to happen again." Leah held her hand tightly. "You have to choose, Maya. This habit will destroy you if you don't stop." The doctor came in later, holding her file. "You're lucky you came early," he said kindly. "But your body has been through too much. Next time, you might not recover so easily." Those words echoed in her mind for days. When she was finally discharged, she promised Leah again, never again. "I mean it this time." Leah smiled sadly. "I hope you mean it, Maya. You deserve better than this." Maya nodded, but her face was pale and distant. A few days later, Ethan came to visit. He stood by her doorway, holding a bouquet of white lilies. "You look tired," he said softly. She smiled weakly. "I feel worse than I look." He pulled a chair and sat beside her. "You know, when I left you back then, I thought you were stubborn. But now I think you were just lonely." Her eyes filled with tears. Maybe I was both. He looked at her with sad eyes. I wish I'd stayed. Maybe things would have been different. Maya shook her head slowly. No. Some lessons can't be taught by love. They come through pain. They sat in silence for a while. Then Ethan said quietly, "Promise me you'll take care of yourself now." "I promise," she said softly. But in her heart, she wasn't sure she could keep it. Days turned to weeks again. Maya stayed home, resting, eating only what Leah cooked. But every time Leah wasn't around, the silence grew heavy. Her phone buzzed with another notification. The Golden Bowl reopened with new management. "Come taste our improved recipes." She stared at it for a long time. Her stomach didn't growl this time, but something else, a quiet craving, moved deep inside her. She turned off the phone quickly, then turned it back on. Her finger hovered over the app, trembling. Her heart whispered, "Just check. Not to order. Just to see the menu." She tapped it. The pictures appeared again, bright, colorful, tempting. And her eyes filled with tears. Because she knew what she was looking at wasn't food anymore. It was her weakness staring right back at her. The days grew longer, and the nights became heavier. Maya stayed home from work for almost 2 weeks. Leah had traveled to visit her family, leaving her alone in the apartment. The silence was deep and full, the kind that made every small sound, the ticking clock, the humming fridge, the wind outside, feel like a voice whispering in her ear. At first, she liked the quiet. She read books, watched movies, and slept a lot. But slowly, her thoughts started to creep in, soft, slow, and sharp. She began remembering things she hadn't thought of in years. Her childhood. The small dining table in her parents' house. The nights when her mother came home late, too tired to cook. She would drop plastic bags on the table and say, "Eat that, Maya. Mommy's too tired today." Her father was never there. He was always somewhere else, working, traveling, promising to make up for lost time. But that time never came. And so, food became Maya's comfort. When she opened a restaurant pack as a child, it felt like love wrapped in foil. It was warmth after a long day of loneliness. It told her she didn't have to wait for anyone, the world could serve her instead. Now, as an adult, she realized she'd been chasing that same feeling all her life. She whispered into the still air, "Maybe I never loved the food. Maybe I just loved being cared for." Her own voice sounded strange, weak, trembling, like a child's. The next morning, rain poured heavily. Maya sat by the window, staring at the wet streets. People ran with umbrellas, cars splashed water, and everything smelled like cold air and dust. Her stomach rumbled softly. She hadn't cooked. She didn't have the strength. She opened her phone. The Golden Bowl app still glowed at the corner of her screen, like a secret she couldn't delete. She pressed her lips together and whispered, "Don't do it." But her thumb hovered. Click. The menu appeared again, the same dishes, the same promises. But this time, there was something new at the top. Weekend special, free dessert for loyal customers. Loyal customers. The words made her chest tighten. Loyal to poison. She threw the phone onto the couch, breathing fast. "No, no, no. I'm not doing this again," she said aloud. "I've learned my lesson." But her body trembled. Her hands itched. Her heart pounded so fast it hurt. It wasn't hunger, it was craving, deep and silent like an invisible pull. Minutes passed. Then an hour. And at last, she gave in. She told herself it was only to check if the food really improved. Only to see if what people said online was true. But she knew the truth. And yet she ordered anyway. When the knock came on the door, she froze. It was the delivery man, smiling politely. "Your order, She took the bag with shaking hands, paid, and closed the door quickly. Her breath came fast and shallow. She could feel her heart beating in her throat. She placed the bag on the table and stared at it. The smell was rich, warm, familiar. She slowly opened the pack. The food looked perfect, bright rice, tender meat, colorful vegetables. "Maybe they've changed," she whispered. "Maybe this time, it's fine." But before taking a bite, she noticed something odd. A small, dark stain on the corner of the container. Sticky, brownish red. Her fingers trembled as she lifted it closer. It wasn't sauce. It was blood. Her stomach turned. The delivery bag had another faint smell now, raw meat, mixed with old oil. She dropped the food and ran to the sink, washing her hands again and again, as if trying to scrub off something invisible. Her reflection in the mirror above the sink looked pale and terrified. "What's wrong with me?" she whispered. "Why can't I stop?" That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing sounds, scratching in the walls, footsteps in her head, whispers of her mother's tired voice. "Eat that, Maya. Mommy's too tired today." Tears filled her eyes. "I just wanted to be loved," she cried softly. "That's all." Her phone rang. It was Ethan. "Maya, are you okay? I just had this strange feeling." Her voice broke. "I messed up again." He was silent for a moment. Then he said gently, "I'm coming over." When he arrived, the food box was still on the table, untouched but open. The smell filled the room. He looked at it, then at her. "You ordered again?" She nodded weakly. "I tried not to, but I don't know how to stop." Ethan stepped closer, his voice low and kind. "Maya, you don't need to punish yourself. You need help." "Help," she whispered. "Who can help someone who doesn't listen?" "You can," he said firmly. "You can start by forgiving yourself." Her tears fell harder. "I almost died, Ethan. Twice. And I still went back. What's wrong with me?" He took her shaking hands in his. "You're human. And humans break before they heal." She looked up at him, her lips trembling. "I don't think I can heal." He wiped a tear from her cheek. "Then let someone help you try." That night, Ethan stayed until she fell asleep. But even in her dreams, the images returned: the filthy kitchen, the laughing cooks, the rats, the smell of spoiled meat. In her dream, she was back in that kitchen, holding a plate of food. She looked down and saw her reflection in the stew, pale, frightened, hollow. Then the reflection smiled back at her and whispered, "Eat." She woke up screaming. The next morning, the rain had stopped. The air smelled clean and new. Ethan had left a note on the table: "You're stronger than you think. But you need to face the truth, not the food, not the restaurant. Yourself." Maya read it over and over again. Then, without a second thought, she grabbed her coat and keys. She was going back to the Golden Bowl. Not to eat, but to end it. Maya walked down the rainy streets toward the Golden Bowl, her heart heavy but determined. Her hands clutched her coat tightly, and her breath formed small clouds in the chilly morning air. This time, she was not coming to eat. She was coming to see the truth she had avoided for so long. The restaurant looked the same from the outside: bright, clean, and inviting. People smiled as they entered. A waiter called her name cheerfully. "Good morning, Miss Maya. We missed you yesterday." Maya didn't respond. She pushed the door open and stepped inside, ignoring the usual warm smells that had once made her weak in the knees. Every step toward the kitchen felt heavy, like carrying stones in her chest. She approached the swinging door, the one she had peeked through months ago. Her hands shook as she pushed it open. The kitchen was worse than she remembered. The tiles were covered with grease and grime. Pots and pans were stacked in corners, sticky with old food. Flies buzzed lazily over meat that sat exposed. Rats darted across the floor, disappearing under counters and reappearing near raw fish. Maya's stomach twisted violently. She gagged but refused to step back. A cook noticed her and laughed. "Ah, Miss Maya, want some lunch?" Maya's voice trembled. How do you serve this?" The cook shrugged. "It's food. People eat it. They pay, we cook. What's the problem?" Her vision blurred. She saw the same sloppy hands touching raw meat, chopping vegetables on the same dirty boards, wiping sweat with the same filthy cloths. And then she noticed the freezer door slightly open, revealing meat crawling with maggots. She staggered backward. Her chest tightened. Her head spun. For a moment, she imagined herself sitting at the table, eating, smiling. Then she saw herself in the hospital bed, pale, weak, hooked to fours, and realized if she hadn't stopped herself in time this morning, she would be there again. She sank onto a chair and covered her face, sobbing quietly. Leah arrived minutes later, breathless. "Maya," she exclaimed. "I called you. What happened?" Maya didn't look up. I had to see for myself," she whispered. "It's worse than I ever imagined." Leah sat beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I know, Maya. That's why you had to stop. It's not just about food. It's about protecting yourself." Maya nodded through her tears. "I didn't listen before. I thought I was invincible. I thought it wouldn't happen to me." Leah squeezed her hand. "Sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones we learn too late." Maya swallowed hard. She had been stubborn, reckless, and careless, and now she finally understood. Days turned into weeks. Maya avoided all restaurants, even the small ones she used to trust. She cooked every meal at home, sometimes with Leah's help, sometimes alone. Each dish reminded her not of comfort, but of survival. She had learned, painfully, that taking care of herself was more important than convenience or fleeting pleasure. She thought of Ethan often. His kindness, his patience, his willingness to forgive, and his absence. She wanted to call him, to tell him she had changed, but every time she tried, the words stuck in her throat. She realized something else too. Some lessons could not be shared, some mistakes could not be undone. She had almost destroyed her health again, almost thrown her life away for a craving that was never really about food. And Ethan, he had been right all along. Love alone couldn't fix her unless she wanted to fix herself first. One quiet afternoon, as she prepared a simple meal of rice and beans, she paused and looked out the window. Rain had returned, but the streets felt calmer now. Her life had a strange new rhythm, cautious, slow, deliberate. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears, steady and strong. A thought struck her like a sudden gust of wind. She had survived. She had faced the consequences of her stubbornness, her cravings, and her carelessness. She had learned what she could have lost. And yet, her heart ached. She had lost months to fear, pain, and poor choices. She had almost lost herself completely. She had lost the chance to rebuild what she and Ethan might have had to learn together, to grow together, to fall in love while helping each other. Some lessons came too late. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she stirred the pot. She whispered softly to herself, "I can't go back. I can only go forward." The words felt hollow, bittersweet, but they were true. She had survived, yes. But survival came at a cost. She finished cooking, packed her meal into a container, and carried it to work. The journey was slow, but each step felt lighter than before. She would never again trust convenience over caution, nor the illusion of comfort over the reality of safety. She reached her office and opened her lunchbox, the smell of her own cooking filling her senses. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't fancy, but it was hers. And for the first time, Maya understood that some victories were quiet, invisible, and deeply personal, won not with applause or recognition, but with awareness and endurance. Weeks later, she received a message from Ethan. "I heard about what happened. I've been worried. I hope you're okay." Maya stared at the screen for a long time. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to answer, to say she had changed, to reconnect, to tell him she had learned. But she didn't. Instead, she closed the phone and smiled faintly. Not a happy smile, but a calm one. She had learned the hardest lesson of her life. Some mistakes leave marks, some chances are lost, and some love must wait or vanish entirely. She had survived. And that, in itself, was enough. Maya looked out the window one last time. The city lights twinkled like tiny stars. She had been reckless, stubborn, and foolish. But she had faced her truth, faced her fear, and learned to live again, not perfectly, not safely, but honestly. The Golden Bowl would continue to serve its customers, some unaware of the horrors behind its walls. But Maya knew the price of ignoring warning signs, the cost of choosing comfort over caution. And she would never forget. Ignoring where your food comes from or relying only on others to cook can cost you your health sometimes. The safest meals are the ones you make with your own hands. Thank you guys. Like, subscribe and share to your friends and loved ones. Share with us in the comment section your experience with bad food from restaurants. Tell me what you think about this story and let me know where you are watching from. See you in my next video.